Are we still on for tomorrow?
Tomorrow is full of promise.
We can come back tomorrow.
And we promise to keep it that way. CSX, how tomorrow moves.
What a day.
Can't wait till tomorrow.
We're back. This is Between the Lines live at SanduskyRegister.com. I'm Matt Westerhold, managing editor of the Register, and I'm joined now by a group that has spearheaded the social media and signs campaign for Justice for Jake&Ella. I think most of our viewers know that case. Jacob Limberios was killed on March 2nd, 2012. Sandusky County officials struggled with their investigation for, I think, 15 months before a judge handed it over to Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine, who's been conducting an investigation for the past 3 months about. And I wanted to, let me introduce everybody on the program today. Christine Weedle is a neighbor of the Limberioses, I believe. Lonnie Cecil is a family friend. Brady Gosser was a friend of Jacob's and is a friend of the family. And Cody Dowk, also a friend of the family. And I wanted to start the program with Brady because I wanted our viewers to hear directly from Brady. When was the last time you talked to Jacob?
March 2nd, 2012 at 9:27 p.m.
And do you recall what you talked about in that conversation?
Yes, earlier in the day, I was headed back to Castalia from West Virginia University, where I was studying at the time, just to come home and meet up with Jake and our other friend, Chris, catch up with him since I was going to school out of state. I was texting him that evening on the way home, planning on meeting up.
You weren't texting while driving, though?
No, I was in the passenger seat.
Okay.
Got home a little bit later than anticipated. Called him twice from my parents' home phone. And it was just, back now, ready to hang out, excited to.
Okay.
Said, yeah, we'll be there in about
so
15 minutes.
You were planning a social gathering that evening with friends.
Yes.
And you talked to Jake, and he was killed moments later.
We hung up the phone at 9:29 p.m. and the 911 call was made at 9:33 p.m.
Okay, so within 5 minutes after that call ended, Jacob was dead. So, and since then, the investigation by Sandusky County officials was, how would you describe it?
Just confusing, really, I guess. Couple days, I think, after the funerals, when people started asking questions, and just a few people at first. I was conversations with Jake's father, Mike, questions that he had. Started to be uncomfortable with how they ruled Jake's death.
And Jacob's death was ruled basically an accidental suicide, which is, how an intentional act can also be an unintentional act has still not been explained. Sandusky County Coroner John Wookey never went to the York Township home where Jacob was killed, did not order an autopsy, and made his ruling, you believe, everybody seems to believe, based on the instructions from the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office. And they made that determination within hours after Jacob was killed. So what sparked the Justice for Jake&Ella Facebook page?
As things really started to get heated up with the media, and the fight really with the county started heating up, we really decided that if the public saw the same evidence that we had in our possession, that they would agree with us, and that would help move things along. So when we first created the page, that was our goal, was to put the evidence out there that we had, and we thought if other people saw that evidence, they would get on board with us.
That is very succinct. Effectively, what you wanted to do is you wanted the public to know what you knew.
Initially, yes.
And Christine, how did you become involved?
I live next door to Mike and Shannon, and I just started with a big sign in my yard. When we wanted Mike DeWine to step in, my husband and I made a 4x8 big sheet asking DeWine to step in and shame on you. You know,
I remember that.
Sandusky County, and that big sign turned into, well, if little signs and we could get more support, we would do little signs.
And this is one of those signs, Jason, where on both sides, actually. But these come in, 18 feet plyboard as well.
We do.
You'll make them as big as you need?
4x4 sheets, we hand paint. And then we have like these little campaign signs. If yards can't support a big sign, we do the little signs.
And how do people, now I might say I went to visit, I went to the Ohio Veterans Home this morning, which is one path from my home, and then I came here to work, which is a separate path, and I saw 22 Justice for Jake and Ella signs in that drive. And the signs are basically, how many signs are out there, do you think?
We have 150 big 4x4 sheets of wood, and we have over 800 small signs.
Interesting. So that's a lot of support. And how many, is it fans or likes? What do you call them at the Justice for Jake Facebook page?
We call them likes.
Okay.
We have over 7,100 the last time I looked of likes on our page that people follow the story.
They're followers of Justice for Jake and Ella. And what's next?
What's next? I started a mailing campaign to national news. Every week we mail over 300 letters. We have a flyer that we mail in neon colors to grab attention for national media. This is the third week we've done it to grab support that way and attention, and it's turned out good. We talked to a producer from CNN.
The cable news network, which is still a major dominant player in cable news and in journalism. ABC has published online, yahoo.com network online. I believe a reporter from a broadcast channel in Columbus was here recently.
Yes.
The Toledo Blade has picked up on this story. The Associated Press has picked up on this story. At this point, it's getting, 3 months ago, it was like, hey, there's somebody picking up on it.
Right.
And it was really exciting. At this point, the different media outlets that are picking up on it are pretty extraordinary. Lonnie, how did you become involved?
Well, I've been a close friend of the family since
forever?
Since forever. And it's always been a close family. And
did you know Jacob growing up?
I knew Jacob growing up. He went on a lot of vacations with us. I was best friends with his dad's sister, Michelle, and any vacation we went on, we took Jake with us because he was the same age as my son and her daughter. And I mean, he was a great kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then right before this happened, Mike's mother passed away, and we've always said we would stick together. And when I saw this tearing his family apart.
Well, what is it that you think is tearing the family apart? And anybody feel free to respond to that. If you had to pinpoint it to, the loss of a son is devastating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that you carry with you forever. But what is it that, if you had to pinpoint one thing that occurred after Jacob was killed, and anybody can answer that question, what would it be?
The time that it has taken the mistakes that they have made and the time that it's taking for them to get the answers that are the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
what do you believe the truth is?
I believe that he couldn't have shot himself. That there's scientific proof. I mean, if you look at all the answers that they've gotten back from the forensics that know what they're talking about and what they're doing, there's no way that
Jacob was holding the gun. Is what
I have a daughter that graduated in forensic science.
Okay.
And when I just told her a few things of what has been happening. She's like, I can't believe they did this. And I mean, she just graduated. And she knew, and she says, how could they do this? How could they do this? How do you have these questions for a county that it's happened before?
And I think that's, you know, that's one of the reasons, you know, the Register became interested in this. In 2007, there was an inmate at the Sandusky County Jail who died, and the Lucas County coroner ruled the death. What was that ruling? Dan? What was that ruling?
It was excited delirium.
Excited delirium, which is a scientifically created phenomena that didn't explain the injuries on that inmate's body, which were severe, from being tasered, being burnt, and didn't really offer a full explanation and was concerning. And then I believe it was 2010. 27-year-old Brian Jones was in his home and had frightened his family, was passed out on a couch with a rifle in his lap. The deputies did not awaken him. They stood, Sandusky County deputies stood 6 feet away from him, but did not awaken him. They stepped back and lit a flashbang grenade and then shot him to death when he was jerked awake. He did have a unloaded rifle in his lap at the time. And then I think in 2012, early 2012, a 21-year-old schizophrenic inmate who was denied her medication was allegedly sexually exploited for 6 hours by a jail guard who was later terminated, but then paid $5,000 not to make disparaging remarks about the sheriff. And that was followed by the death of Jacob Limberios, in which it appears Sandusky County Sheriff's deputies made a ruling that he committed suicide, but it might have been accidental, without collecting evidence and without conducting an autopsy or providing any explanation to the family. And so that compilation of events sharpened the Register's focus on this story out of just general concern that there was a level of incompetence that was killing people. I mean, when it comes right down to it, that's and certainly we have followed the work you have done and the support you have gotten. Dan McGookie is here also, to my right, off camera. Dan, did you just tap, or was that your coffee cup?
That's my coffee.
Oh, okay.
Never
Very
good.
good. Without it. Jason, should we take a short break?
Sure.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and I want to encourage our audience in the interactive chat room to ask any questions they want to. Jason will read those questions, and we'll get answers as well as we can. This is Between the Lines live at SanduskyRegister.com.
Get in touch with your inner scientists. Transfer degrees in science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine at Terra State Community College. Start here, go anywhere. Learn more at terra.edu.
Are you the only one still using the book? Get found at firelands411.com. Half of the internet users today will use a search engine to find a business. Make sure you're found at firelands411.com, an all-local business directory with phone numbers, addresses, and more. Your customers are looking for you. Claim your free listing today at firelands411.com.
Find your passion in healthcare at Terra State Community College. Start here, go anywhere. Learn more at terra.edu.
Yeah, I think we.
This is Between the Lines Live at SanduskyRegister.com. We're with the group that invented the social media campaign to support the family of Jacob Limberios, who was killed on March 2nd, 2012. And the family's still awaiting answers as to what happened that night and how Jacob was killed. Jason Werling's with us. Jason, you want to say hello?
Hello.
Jason is the producer of Between the Lines. Jason, do we have any questions in the chat room?
We do not.
Okay. Well, Cody, tell us about the work you've done with the Facebook site.
Well,
how did you get involved?
Well, Jake and I have been pretty good friends for a while.
Okay.
One thing that him and I we got close around was Bob Dylan. We both really love Bob Dylan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Shannon mentioned that
Yeah.
to me, and I was pleased that a 19-year-old loved Bob Dylan.
Yeah, I mean that was one thing that we always really connected on, and I was living in Columbus at the time that he died, so kind of hurt because the last time I saw him, he surprised me and showed up at my place. He was like, "Hey, are you gonna be home at some time?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Cool, well, I'm going to a gun show." And then next thing you know, like 5 minutes later, I get a knock on my door, and he's there. So when the night he died, I dropped everything, went home, saw Mike and Shannon and things like that, and then got a phone call from Brady. Probably 3 months after it happened, maybe sooner, saying Mike and I have a theory, and
Mike Limberios.
Yes.
Jacob's father.
Yeah, about the whole situation. So it was Mike, Shannon, obviously Jacob's siblings, and it felt like we all had like this little inner circle that we had an idea of what we thought happened. So Brady put together the page and all that stuff, and I was kind of there in a distance, but I decided to contribute something because I'm an artist, and obviously one great thing that I miss about Jake is he was so supportive of my work, and I used to work with Best Buy. I used to work at Best Buy with him, and I'd be in the middle of doing something with a customer, and he'd just throw a piece of paper and say, "Draw Batman real quick," And I miss that about him, but just figured I had to make something that spoke what I missed about Jake and what was Jake. And that Bob Dylan picture, straight from the documentary, was something I had to do.
And you can find that at the JusticeforJake&Ella. So JusticeforJake&Ella Facebook page, which is a dynamic page. Watching it grow over the past 8 months and watching the number of followers and the ingenuity that you've all shown and the cohesiveness that the family has shown has just really been inspiring. I wanted to talk with you, Brady, a little bit about at the Justice for Jake and Ella page. You can find recordings of numerous interviews that detectives did with witnesses, including the 3 people who were inside the home with Jacob, or 2 of them, who were inside the home the night Jacob was killed. As well as other information, because as you said, one of the purposes of the Facebook page was to get what you knew out into the public.
Yes.
And you were also interviewed.
Strangely, yes, I was.
And you were interviewed by Sandusky County Sheriff's Captain Sean O'Connell, who traveled to Cleveland because you were in Cleveland at the time. Are you a student in Cleveland?
Yeah, I go to CSU.
Okay, Cleveland State University. And so Detective O'Connell thought it was important that he interview you. What did he ask you during that interview?
I can't recall any
specific questions.
Yeah,
I think that's
I don't know if I can
because
recall any questions much at all.
Is that because he didn't ask any questions?
if he did, there might have been maybe one or two.
And the interview went on for 72 minutes, I think?
Yes.
What do you think the purpose of his interview with you was?
I think he made it pretty clear that he thought that myself and everyone else involved on the Facebook page was jeopardizing his investigation into Jacob's death, although at the end of the conversation he reinforced the idea to me that they already knew that Jake shot himself.
But he never issued a final report of his months-long investigation.
Apparently not.
None that we know of, and if there was a final report, it would be a public document. And Mr. McGookie, have you received that report?
No.
Okay. So it was a 72-minute interview, and I listened to the interview, and I was trying to figure out why is he here? I mean, he was interviewing you as a witness, but he didn't ask you any real questions.
No.
And he talked.
Talked a lot.
He talked a lot. And that interview is available at Justice for Jake and Ella Facebook page. I think there's also a link at the Register in the Register series of stories. In the end, if you're interested in it, you can find it at either place, and either place is fine. You mentioned that he suggested to you that you were jeopardizing the investigation. Did he suggest how you were jeopardizing the investigation?
By releasing such interviews that we referenced earlier, witness interviews, paper documents, just pieces of evidence. He didn't think it was a good idea for the public to be aware of.
Why wouldn't it be a good idea?
You have to ask him. I thought it was a pretty good idea.
They don't want you to know the truth.
Yeah.
They don't.
It could be that
They
you're
don't
suggesting.
want you to hear the truth.
And he indicated to you during that interview or monologue that he knew that Jacob had shot himself.
Yes, he made a point to establish that at the end.
And how did he know?
By a lot of supposed scientific facts that Dr. Wecht then disputed on an edition of this show.
So I'm not sure whether he's a forensic pathologist, but I'm assuming he's not.
I don't think so.
Dan McGookie, do you have any comment about that?
Not really, other than during that interview, if that's what you're asking specifically, about the interview between Detective O'Connell and Brady.
Yes.
As I recall, it's been a long time since I've listened to it, but he was making mention of some facts, particularly that stippling or the gunpowder residue could dissipate or could have been jeopardized in the embalming process, and the several, including Dr. Wecht, but also Dr. Whaley, I mean, they dispute that findings. I'm certainly not a forensic pathologist, and I don't claim to be, but everything that I've heard is directly the contrary of that this gunpowder residue stippling does not dissipate or is not jeopardized in the embalming process, and even now it would be present. It's also called tattooing. This is a .357 Magnum. There's a picture which is a very powerful picture in terms of understanding how that works, of Jake firing the gun shortly before his death, and there's a flame literally coming out the barrel of that gun. It's at least 6 inches of flame.
It's
like 12 to 18 inches.
And that photo is available to view at the Justice for Jake Facebook page, Justice for Jake and Ella Facebook page, as well as SanduskyRegister.com. The Register has written more than 100 stories on this since this social media campaign began, since I think September, when Dr. Wecht conducted the autopsy, September of 2012.
Yeah, and if that's a question, man, I'd like to comment that's 6 months after Jake's death, that the family had to make a heart-wrenching decision to dig their son up again, exhume him, for the purpose of having a private autopsy done because Sandusky County refused to do it.
Why did they refuse to do it? Does anybody have any conjecture? That's the constant question that comes back. Well, why wouldn't you order an autopsy?
They didn't want nobody to know.
Yeah.
They were
Would
just
they?
too busy trying to convince everybody that he committed suicide.
Right, and not alone, would they, if it was their son, would they spend 559 days it's been sitting back when someone, an agency is supposed to protect you and to get to the truth? Would they be sitting back not doing anything and just letting this accept your son's death and go on when a father and a mother knows their child? They knew Jake was not suicidal. What kid goes to meet with friends and puts a gun to his head and pulls the trigger? That's not a suicide. A suicidal kid don't do that in front of talking to a friend, making plans to get together and enjoy each other's
3 minutes
company.
earlier.
Right. None of it, would Sandusky County accept that? Would
Why
Shannon
do
County
you
accept
think this
that?
happened? I mean, and I don't want you to conjecture that there are bad guys or good guys, or, but I've been asking myself that question too. Why is this? And I don't have any answers, nothing concrete. And I guess I shouldn't even ask you. It's just waiting for, at this point, the Attorney General's office to come to some sort of determination. And one of the concerns about that has been, I know I've talked to Mr. McGookie. Attorney Dan McGookie represents the family in a lawsuit, as well as this effort to, as Dan would often say, get at the truth. Mm-hmm. And that's all the family wants, is the truth.
Right.
There were times when members of DeWine's investigative team, which include top prosecutors, and DeWine himself has suggested that they're going to do a thorough investigation, but the family should be prepared if in case the results aren't what they hope they would be. And your response, is that an accurate way to say it? Because the way that's been suggested is always curious to me.
I think that's fair. Our concern, Mike and Shannon's concern, and all the supporters here, the concern, by far and away the number one concern, is not getting at the truth. A final result which essentially says, we don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that's unacceptable because we believe the scientific evidence allows for a pretty much a 100% determination on at least one question, and that is whether or not, based on the forensic evidence, Jacob could have shot himself. So we just feel strongly that for anyone to come back, including the AG's office, with the response, and I'm not suggesting this is what they're going to do, it remains to be seen, but for any investigatory authority to come back and say, well, we just don't know, the evidence is too stale, it's been discarded, etc., that's just not acceptable.
And Sandusky County Coroner Dr. John Wookey, who has never returned a phone call from the Sandusky Register about this case, in his ruling said that Jacob committed suicide, but he might not have known the gun was loaded. Essentially, an accidental suicide. Either suicide or an accidental suicide, which might be the only such ruling in the history of the universe. And he's never changed that ruling, responded to inquiries, or offered any explanation. As Dan said, the family was forced to make a difficult decision to exhume Jacob's body in September 2012 and have the body examined by Dr. Cyril Wecht, a forensic pathologist in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who determined that Jacob was the victim of a homicide, based on the stifling or lack of stifling, which, as Dan mentioned, is a burn at the wound area. If he had been holding the gun, if he was physically holding the gun when it was shot, it would have left a burn at the wound area. And as Mike, I believe, mentioned, the firepower of that .357 Magnum was enormous, but according to WEC, the scientific evidence is there was no way Jacob could have been holding the gun. I think that was in September, and then 6 months later, through Special Prosecutor Dean Henry, a Tiffin attorney who is no longer involved in the case, but at that time representing Dr. John Wookey, forced a second exhumation of Jacob's body and a second autopsy. And the results from that autopsy were that Dr. Cynthia Beiser, the deputy coroner in Lucas County, determined that her findings were not, quote, not inconsistent with John Wookey's findings. But to one other forensic pathologist, Dr. Kevin Whaley, reviewed both of those examinations and agreed with WEC. And now Dr. Michael Bodden, a former New York medical examiner, is reviewing them once again for Attorney General Mike DeWine. Mr. DeWine said yesterday that Bodden will be reviewing witness statements as well as the physical evidence and information available from the autopsies. Are you encouraged by Mike DeWine's activity in this?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And when do you think you'll hear an answer from Mr. DeWine? And Dan, please feel free to pipe in. You never want to talk, so.
They haven't set a time frame, have they? It's
No.
open-ended. Once they're done investigating, they're done investigating. We don't have a time frame.
Mr. McGookie, do you have a time frame?
No. The only thing we've heard is that they, and we appreciate this, that they have to conduct a thorough investigation. So no, they're not, really letting on anything to us.
But you're hopeful. All of you are hopeful? Are you?
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say you're confident that DeWine will assist the family and you in getting at the truth?
I am.
Yeah.
The science is a science. Science
Good.
don't lie.
That was one of our initial goals when we first created the page, other than getting the evidence out there, was to somehow put DeWine in a position to take authority over the investigation, because we believe then that he would do a good job, and we don't have any reason to not believe that now.
Okay. Well, I think the what you've done is brilliant, and it's obviously been impactful and powerful. The way you explained it, Brady, about you just wanted people to see what you saw.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've succeeded at that. So I want to congratulate all of you for sticking with your friends and doing what you think was right. Jason, do we have any questions in the audience?
We do not.
Okay.
There were some, but other people answered them.
Oh, I hope it wasn't me. You mean they answered them right in the chat room?
Yeah, there's other people in the chat room that could answer the questions that they have.
This program is being shown live as it happens right now and will be available for on-demand viewing at SanduskyRegister.com. Lonnie, you seem to have something to say.
I'm sorry.
No.
I think Brady, too, is working on something right now, because this is really strong with our followers to know that, we want the answers and the truth, but we don't want this to happen to anyone else. And so Brady is doing...
Yeah, talk about the legislation that you hope comes out of this.
Well, first, like Lonnie said, our second goal to finding out the truth was always to make sure that this doesn't happen to another family or another friend. And it should be obvious what we're talking about, what we don't want to happen again, but to be specific with my experience. The night that Jacob was killed, I was waiting for him to pick me up when my cell phone rang, and it was my girlfriend who told me that Jake accidentally shot himself. And that thought or idea or image has really been burned into my head and been reinforced many times by Wookie, Meggett, Kaiser, O'Connell, Henry, all those guys, and
These are Sandusky County officials.
It's really hard to get rid of that image. I don't want another friend to have to experience that again. And how we feel we can do that is by introducing some reform to Ohio's current coroner laws. I've been talking on the phone meeting with State Senator Chris Redfern, who's from this area.
Catawba Island.
Yeah.
He's also the Ohio Democratic Party chairman.
Yep. I reached out to him. I think I was having a conversation with Jake's mother, Shannon, and we were surprised to hear that Dr. Wookie didn't break any laws by doing what he did.
By not ordering an autopsy, or investigating the crime scene.
Yeah. So Shannon kind of just had the idea that we should try changing that, and she coined it Jake's Law. So I then authored a petition, which we don't really feel like we need that anymore now that we have Redfern on board, and just recently wrote up, I authored, and Dan helped me choose the language a little bit on what we want that to be exactly. So I just met with Redfern last week, and when the investigation's over, Chris and Gardner, who I believe is another Republican state senator from represents Sandusky County.
Yes.
I think they're gonna
co-sponsor a
bill and bring it to the floor after this is over. So.
And so what you're hoping for is legislation that would make it mandatory that in a suspicious death, a coroner is required to order an autopsy.
Well, we changed the language and added a lot more. It's a lot more comprehensive. First, we want more vigorous and more often training for coroners. We really want them to have the skills to lead the initial death investigation. We want coroners to be required to either show up to death scenes themselves, or if they're not able to make it, have the Bureau of Criminal Investigation show up for them. We want mandatory autopsies on shooting and stabbing deaths, and at least an external examination for every death. And also, I think one of the hardest things throughout this was when Jake was exhumed.
The first time or the second time?
The second time. We've all sat in on the court hearings, and that was being discussed by Dan and Dean debating about it to the judge. And
I miss Dean.
Yeah, the language.
Don't get me started.
If you're out there, Dean, hello.
We're just thinking the language of that law over disinterment of the body was very vague, and it obviously doesn't work in real life. So we want prosecutors and coroners to only be able to order a disinterment of a body only if that body is located within the county in which they were elected.
Yeah, that was an interesting part of that. Effectively, Dean Henry acting as Wookie's attorney, while he was also acting as the special prosecutor investigating the criminal allegations, ordered an exhumation not in Sandusky County, where he had authority, but in Erie County. And I think the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office offered to send reinforcements to Erie County in case there was an uprising, which there was not. There was a silent protest, I believe. Well, we'll have to follow up with Chris Redfern and see how that's moving forward, and so we'll do that. I think that's a newsworthy item. So that would put us at about 103 stories at SanduskyRegister.com in the Lumberio's shooting saga. compilation of coverage. So I would recommend our viewers go there or go for even more information. Go to JusticeforJake&Ella, the Facebook page, which is a compilation of a lot of information. As you mentioned, you wanted to get what you knew out into the public. I think you've succeeded at that.
And really, that is one ad that kind of transitioned into what Christina and Lonnie are really doing a good job at now, which is fundraising events that they put together so that the family could give Jake a tombstone that he deserves. They're doing a lot more media outreach and things like they're doing a really good job of that now.
Yes, and you can see that pay off in the media attention that you're getting. As I said, it used to be you got excited about one other media company latching on to this, but now we're seeing them almost daily, at least this week, as this moves forward.
We've grabbed a lot of attention with our demolition derby guys.
Yeah, talk about that real quick.
Well, I posted on Facebook. We were looking for a demolition cart for Sandusky County Fair, and I had Jessica Haller, the wife of Brandon Haller, and their whole crew that they run with. We had 2 cars there. We won in Sandusky County. We came in first and second in Sandusky County. And then the following week we went to New London and had 2 or 3 cars in New London that ran, and Brandon's brother Ryan won the derby there. We were just in Fulton County with our car.
And you're getting a lot of attention from the broadcasters as they cover the demo derby. What were they saying? Oh, I love these.
How they need to support the family and come out and find us on Facebook. We are getting ready. We did launch a new website, and that's justice with the number 4 for Jake and Ella spelled out .com, where on Facebook our information moves to the bottom of the page. It's not all in one spot. We're gonna do one spot. We just haven't got it all up there, but it is up right now. Twitter at Jake Lumberius.
Okay. So, there's no telling where this goes from here. Mm-hmm. I mean, if Mr. DeWine comes back and provides the family with information that, as Dan says, they're just looking for the truth. There's no telling what would take place after this. I mean, you've become activists, mm-hmm. and there are probably other causes you could pick up. So I wish you the best of luck in doing that. These are some of the things that you can order.
Yep, T-shirts.
To help fund the effort. And Ella, we should say, is Jacob's 4-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. She is 4, right?
Yes.
And the family didn't want Ella believing Jacob committed suicide. But they also just wanted simple answers. You got cups and sunglasses. We should have all worn these sunglasses.
Can cozies.
So if you want those, you can go to the Facebook page.
Go to the Facebook page. If anybody wants a sign, Lonnie and I do signs. Our numbers are on Facebook.
Okay.
You can text us, call us. If you have a problem with big wooden signs, we come back out and fix them. We set them up on site. There's 4 of us that do that. We've been having a problem in Sandusky County with signs. People are having trouble. Fremont PD's coming up to doors wanting signs removed. If they're not in the right place, or if you have any trouble, please get a hold of us. We will get you signs, move it, replace them.
Well, we're going to have to call the Fremont Police Department and get every complaint they've had about every Justice for Jake sign, and we'll be beginning to work on that immediately.
Oh, the messages we've had. We were driving around, a lady stopped us because Fremont Police was on her door knocking, saying that the sign was a problem and it had to be removed. We went back up there, moved it further back in our yard. If anybody in Sandusky County has a problem, let us know. We will come out and take care of it.
Let us know, too. I can be reached at 419-609-5866. I'm very interested in anybody who has had a visit from the Fremont Police about their sign. Generally, signs are part of the First Amendment. It's an expression of your thoughts. I'm surprised that the Fremont Police Department appears to have become, I'm surprised that there's any activity like that. And that's the first that anyone's mentioned that to me.
Oh, no, this has been going on for a while. They throw them in the dumpsters. We have tenants, landlords that are some Sandusky County officials that say their tenants cannot have signs.
If the
whatsoever.
Fremont Police Department, if anybody from the Fremont Police Department is listening, my number is 419-609-5866. We're going to look into this right away. That's what we do.
I'll get you the names of the people.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
We'll call every one of them. The hair on my neck is sticking up now. Wow. Dan, you never mentioned that to me before.
Well, you've been so busy doing all other things.
Jason, the Fremont Police Department, are you saying that the Fremont Police Department has gone to the homes where people put signs up supporting Justice for Jake and Ella and suggested they had to move those signs?
Yes.
And so we're going to get every report the Fremont Police Department has on those complaints. Is there anything else? I want to go start doing that right now. Let's get this program over.
I wanted to point out that those glasses that you look so good in, you should take the sticker off, though. There's a picture of those kind of epitomize Jake because, as Cody said, he's a huge Bob Dylan fan, and there's a picture of Jake wearing those glasses.
That's
on our Facebook page.
Okay. All right. I think we're going to wind it up. I want to thank all of you for being here. Cody Dowk, Lonnie Cecil, Brady Gosser, Christine Weedo, Mike Weedo, and what is your name? Dan. Just Dan. He's a simple country lawyer based in Sandusky. This has been Between the Lines live at SanduskyRegister.com. Thank you for being here today.
Next week.
And next week,